GI Customs here again as we continue work on the Classified-Scale Tomahawk. Again, as I mentioned before, this is for a customer. This is a commissioned piece. If anyone else wants one of these made, definitely go to my website, gicustoms.com, and get your order in. And I can get you in the queue. These are made to order one at a time, so they take anywhere from 15 to 60 days, depending on how many I have in my queue to get done, but I can make them custom for you. They don't all have to be tan. I've had some requests here lately of white ones for winter or Night Force ones. Yes, I can do any of them. You just got to let me know, send me a message after you order, and I can make them however you'd like. That being said, this episode is going to be a little shorter. This is the second to last episode, and to be completely honest, this is going to be shorter not because I don't have as much stuff to show, but because a bunch of my footage didn't work out so well. So I'm still new at this, still trying to get things under control, but as you can see here, I tried a 2-camera setup, which was a great idea in theory. However, didn't take into account that as I have these cameras set up, one is my phone, I can't always see exactly what's going on while I'm doing it. So I set it up the best I can, and then I get to work and look at the footage after, and unfortunately at that point, what's done is done. So once I paint things, I can't, unpaint them and then go back and try again at a different angle. So bear with me a little bit this week. I do have some good work going on here, and I will chime in at the end, give you a little overview of everything that's going on. Some of it I had to cut out because you simply couldn't see it. So I kept in the best footage, so don't be too harsh on me this week. I will get better, and every week get a little better, do a little better. Definitely leave your comments. Let me know. Outside of the fact that I can keep everything on camera, let me know what else you'd like to see, or what I could do better or different. I'm always up for learning and trying to do better, but I am still new at this, so bear with me a little bit here. The other thing this week is I did get a couple requests after the last few episodes of doing a little more talking about what I'm doing. So let me know again if that's something you want to see. It's something I'm going to do this week, but if it's not something you want to see, or you want to see less of that or hear less of that, I guess, definitely chime in the comments and let me know. Before I get started on what I'm doing here, definitely don't forget to subscribe and like this. They're still showing 60-70% of people viewing my content aren't subscribed. So definitely take a second here, pause, go subscribe, come back, something like that. I'd greatly appreciate it. So what I'm getting into here is doing a dark wash on the interior. So if you remember from episode before, painted the interior of the whole helicopter in a light gray. Now that by itself, in my opinion, is a little too light. So what I do is I go over it with a wash, and I know that from the beginning. I've got a dark wash from Vallejo that I go over it. So you'll see I put it on fairly heavy. Like, no, I'm not dumping it on or anything. But then once it's on, let it sit for a second, and I wipe it off with a towel. So in all the recesses and the little corners and stuff, it definitely still stays dark. But everywhere else, it's more of a grunge feel, I guess, a used feel. So it's realistic, more realistic, I guess. Makes it seem like it could have possibly been used somewhere. Obviously, it's a toy and it hasn't been, but I try to go that extra little step and get some realism put in there. So it also darkens up that gray, not a ton, but it does a little bit, which gives it a more realistic feel again. So good thing there, the one thing to keep in mind here is as you're putting this on, one, you don't want to do too big of sections at one time. Make sure you have in your head how long that stuff's drying, because it definitely will. If I just left it and didn't wipe it off, it would dry exactly how it looks. So make sure you leave yourself enough time to take a stop for a second, go in, wipe it down, then go back and put some more on. You'll be just fine. On top of that, here I am getting into some of the finer details. On the exterior, I will do a wash as well, but that'll be one of the last steps after I put decals and everything on. So right now I'm putting on some engine intake weathering, so a little bit of black around the ins and outs of the side intakes on this, to where over time dirt, dust, and everything will have gone in and out, and made some darker spots on it. So it turns out looking pretty good here. I do it around the front cowl as well, where the front engine intakes are. Not going to try to pretend I know exactly what all these parts do on a helicopter, or the fact that this may or may not be set up like a real helicopter. After all, it is a G.I. Joe toy, so, or modeled after a G.I. Joe toy, so there's a very real possibility that some of this stuff doesn't make any sense to a real helicopter, but we're going to go with it and pretend that it does. So after doing some of that on the outside, some final steps on the engine work here up front is some nice silver dry brushing. This again is going to make all these plastic parts, at least at first glance, look a little bit like metal, like they're a little more substantial than a hollow piece of plastic. So it's going to bring out the realism and depth in this engine a lot more than what it is if I just left it the way it was. So it's one thing to put some different color layers and stuff in there like I did with the darker grays, bring out some depth in it, but then going over it with this kind of ties it all together. And though it's hard to see because, like I said, I'm still getting used to the above camera and it's not completely in focus here, but as I pull back, you can see like, oh, okay, this is starting to look a little more real, starting to get a little more realism in there. Here are these mesh screens that are printed in at the back here, which I assume this is either, again, an exhaust or an intake of some kind. I go over to this, and then you'll see I do some airbrushing around it as well, but I do the silver on those first. So here I'll be getting into then the airbrush, just do a little black around the edges. Anywhere, even if it's just an intake and it's not an exhaust, you're still going to be pulling in dust, dirt, and debris, and it's gonna leave some areas of dusty look around the edges, a little darkness. So I like to try to bring that in. Here's the tail piece with the tail engine, some of the turbine back there. So I make sure to paint on the inside there, even though a turbine piece is going to go in there that you'll see later. I don't want there to be tan plastic sticking out around that where you can see down in there, so I make sure to get the insides black and then around the edges again. Do that on both, and there's a rotating exhaust back here. You'll see in next episode my plan. I haven't done this in previous ones, but my plan with this one is that piece is always kind of a pain. There's not a real good way to make it stay in, and it is still supposed to rotate a little bit. So what I'm going to do actually this time is I'm going to make it magnetic. So I'm going to put a magnet in there, mount one on both sides, and then that way that piece will still be able to move and spin a little bit, but it'll stay in place when it's supposed to. Here's my great camera work, a little off. You notice I pay attention every now and then, but then get in my head and in the zone of painting, and it goes back off camera. Apologize for that. I'll definitely keep that in mind going forward and do better. But I am putting some more details on this back turbine engine. Before I had spray painted it black or airbrushed it black, and I showed you guys that, but then I just kind of left it since then. So same details as the front engine, some dark grays and stuff in there, and then going over it with some dry brushing of the silver metallic. Again, all these things are going to be some sort of metal or metallic material in real life, so I'll try to do that. A little bit of metal dry brushing around the exterior, all the bolts and stuff. So do that on the whole thing. I did that on the tail while I had it there. Then we get into some assembly. So Steve's Toys does a great job of making all of these go together real nice with pegs and stuff. But there are certain parts that I know I'm not going to take apart again for the customer, that I glue together. So like I said, I usually leave it to where it can be broke down for the customer and shipping, because I mean, this thing's almost 4 feet long even without the rotor, so a 4 foot long box is not going to be cheap to ship. And here at the end, I'm going to do a little fly around, if you will, kind of show you some of the stuff that didn't get included in this video. Keep in mind these things are loosely fit together. I don't glue or put everything together for shipping purposes like I mentioned, so something to keep in mind as you see that stuff. The back rotor does rotate a little bit, which is cool. It's the way it was designed. You can see here going over some of the different areas now that those covers are on and stuff like that is really nice. The rotors are getting up there. work on the actual blades here next week. That's a hook that goes on the side. It is actually a reel in, reel out, which is cool. And then some of the interior, you can see how the wash turned out, and into the front cockpit area and everything like that. I did do the joysticks. Again, that was some footage that didn't work out, didn't pan out this week. You see the interior looks a lot better once it's got some wash on it, a little more realism in there. And as I back out, keep in mind this spray booth is 4 feet wide. So I made it 48 inches. Got the wheels, but this is a big helicopter. So appreciate everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe.